Hey everyone, this is Jacob Recht with Andy Erk here on behalf of Terry Hutchins' Advanced Sports Writing class, and today we will be discussing Indiana Hoosiers men's basketball. Over the weekend, Sunday night, the Hoosiers faced off against Mississippi Valley State and won by a score of 85-52. It was a pretty reassuring win for the Hoosiers, a nice bounce-back win after that devastating loss against Fort Wayne earlier that week. So, Andy, what are your initial thoughts on this game and the results?
So I think that the Hoosiers, while they showed that they're capable of beating lower-level competition, as you pointed out after the loss of Indiana Purdue University Fort Wayne, there's still a lot of things for them to work on. I think, looking at a couple things, first is the ball movement. I think on offense we're still struggling to figure out how to handle not shooting too many threes and while dealing with Thomas Bryant and others in the post. And especially on the point guard position, I think that's the second major key for the Hoosiers so far. They don't really have a true ball handler, and that gets them in trouble with turnovers, as we saw with 15 against Mississippi Valley State, and they struggled with that against Fort Wayne as well. Juwan Morgan, he's handled the ball quite a bit, but there's still questions about him and his abilities. And just having that presence to bring the ball up the court and be confident while getting into the lane and making the right decision is huge. And defense is still up in the air too. I think they only gave up 52 points to Mississippi Valley State, but it's a lower opponent, and the game against North Carolina will really be showing where they're at defensively.
Yeah, so you mentioned the 15 turnovers by the Hoosiers, and obviously the numbers at the time, they were number 3 ranked. They are going to fall due to their loss against Fort Wayne. That ranking is going to drop significantly, but the 15 turnovers against Mississippi Valley State, I mean, what does that have to say about this Hoosiers offense and maybe some issues with the team communication, the team dynamics?
Yeah, for sure. I think, just as I said a minute ago, the point guard play is probably the number one thing to look at. Not having a guy like Yogi Ferrell and no one to emerge as the true ball handler to this point makes it difficult for the team to control those. And I think, while there is some older players that are sophomores, juniors, and seniors, there's still a lot of youngness about this team, and I think that also leads to a lot of turnovers. They're trying to figure out how to play the game together with some new guys coming in, and with James Blackman back this season, trying to figure out how his role is going to fit in. All those together make it difficult for the team to find a way to really mesh, and we're still seeing that early. Really, North Carolina is the game that's going to tell where we're at. Obviously we beat Kansas earlier in the season, but North Carolina is a different opponent. They're at the same level of Kansas, and keeping away from turnovers is going to be huge, and finding that ball handler, it'll be time for them to shine. So,
yeah, that ball handler, definitely an important position, and obviously the Hoosiers were without James Blackman Jr. On Sunday afternoon due to a leg injury, or a knee injury, I believe. And so what do you think his absence, what that impact it had on the team? He's definitely their go-to scorer, so how did the Hoosiers adjust without him on the court?
Yeah, I think this is a time where we have to see them lean more heavily on the big men, especially Thomas Bryant. Without James Blackman, who's more than capable of knocking down the outside shot, and when he's hobbling on his knee, he's not the same player, obviously, if he even plays against North Carolina, which is obviously coming up. But against Mississippi Valley State, when he didn't play, we saw the offense, which wasn't at the same level as it has been. It's hard, even though OG put up a career-high 21, it's hard for the team to score. There's just not that guy who can go get the bucket when you need it. And, the three-point shooting is something that the team relies on pretty heavily. And not to have that outside stroke in James Blackman is pretty tough. So it puts a lot of pressure on Thomas Bryant, OG, and Robert Johnson going forward.
Definitely. And OG Anunoby has definitely become a staple in the Indiana roster. He, like you mentioned, had a career-high 21 points. And oddly enough, he continues to shoot from outside. He was 3 for 5 from beyond the 3-point line. What do you think what do you make of this development of his 3-point shooting, how he's expanding his game like that, and how that's going to benefit the Hoosiers down the road? Yeah,
absolutely. I think, honestly, there's still some stuff to show about his outside shot. While he's taking a lot of threes, as we saw against Kansas, he didn't take a single 2-point shot. I think there's still some inconsistencies there, where he's got to work out how to handle going off the bounce and taking the jumpers. It's something new for him, and I think that's difficult for him to adjust. And overall, his jumper still has a long way to go. While it looks better and more improved, there's still plenty of room to improve and continue to see his percentage go in an upslope. And obviously for the Hoosiers, it's really important. As we pointed out, they rely heavily on the three-point shot, and to have another guy who can consistently knock down threes is going to be huge for the team to have success going forward.
Yeah, I mean, the Hoosiers shots 36% from the three-point line on Sunday night. A decently good number. The Hoosiers tend to aim around 40%, but without James Blackman Jr. in the lineup, I would say 36% is a pretty good number for them without their star guy. So looking down the road, obviously the Hoosiers fell 10 spots in the rankings. They dropped from number 3 to number 13 in the AP poll because of that unfortunate loss to Fort Wayne. So what do you think the Hoosiers' biggest mentality is going forward in order to reclaim a top 5 spot in the country?
Yeah, they got to, as we pointed out, turnovers is probably number one. And then followed by defense. I think, Tom Crean and the Hoosiers have always been a little bit lackadaisical on the defensive end, and that's been a struggle for the team. And they're not being able to make it past the Sweet 16 and in the tournament. So I think, for them really to jump to that elite level and solidify themselves as a top 5 team this season, they're really going to have to crack down on defense, and learn to toss the ball inside and do a little bit more from the 2-point range and inside the arc, because they rely so heavily on threes. And it puts a lot of pressure on the jumper, which is hard.
And one thing that I've noticed about this Indiana team is they're very streaky. They got out to an early lead, 23-8 against Mississippi Valley State, but then they kind of let their guard down, and that big lead came in the first 10 minutes. But as the first half kind of dwindled down into those final seconds, Mississippi Valley State did come back. They got within 5 points after Indiana was up for double digits the majority of that first half. And they let their guard down. Mississippi Valley State came back, and that's something they definitely have to improve on. Obviously, they pulled away in that second half, and they won the game by over 30 points. But it's something the Hoosiers definitely need to work on, their ability to play a full game instead of just streaks of however many points and good runs every now and then, but letting the team come back. So obviously, the Hoosiers, arguably their biggest game of the year, if it wasn't the Kansas game to begin the season, it's this game against North Carolina in Bloomington. How do you think the Hoosiers are going to match up against the Tar Heels?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tight one. At home, Indiana's won, I think, 20 in a row, and it's going to be tough for them not to play well in Assembly. They're known to play up their competition, play down to their competition.
Yeah.
And, North Carolina's really going to show what they got. And, going forward, this is one of many tough games. They play Purdue, Notre Dame, Butler, and obviously North Carolina. Those are all games that are going to really test Indiana and show what they're made of this season. And it's nice to see them play a tough schedule in the non-conference.
Sure. It's definitely going to get them ready for March come this spring. That's all the time we have. I'm Jacob Recht. This is Andy Erk. On behalf of Terry Hutchins' class, thanks for joining us.